You have to proactively work with your customers and understanding their forecasts, understanding where their business is going. But at the same time, sometimes you can't predict demand. Like in some cases, customers explode and you have to kind of be able to kind of scale quickly and pivot to those needs. Like sometimes things go viral and you're obviously your volume increases 3x overnight.
On today's episode, we're going to go through a lot of really interesting things with Brian. We talked a bit about 3PL, how it's integrating AI, when you should actually start with a 3PL company, when you're scaling in revenue, and how you can actually pick the right partner. So if you continue to double or triple your sales year over year, you're not going to be operationally constrained. Super excited for today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Toolbox, Experts Perspective. Joining us today, we have Brian Tu, who's the CRO of DCL Logistics. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So we're really excited for this episode today. Maybe talk us through your career journey and how you ended up in your current role.
I spent about 18 years in ad tech. So really working with Fortune 500 companies to place ads and do digital marketing. So really working for them to reach the audience. Early days of digital marketing, and kind of fast forward to kind of 7 years ago, I joined DCL and I'm the CRO. If you kind of do a little research, we're a family-owned business. My parents started it 43 years ago, so I run the company with my brother. My parents have since retired.
Very cool. Just out of curiosity, how'd your parents get into business? And how has that kind of evolved over the years? Obviously, there was a big D2C boom in COVID. Maybe start us off with how your parents kind of launched the business, and then we'll go for how it's evolved.
My parents started in 1982 in Silicon Valley, so back in the day where internet didn't exist. And they started off, my father worked at Hewlett Packard as a programmer, and he decided, hey, listen, I want to start my own business. And he stumbled across kind of diskette duplication. So for those that are probably aging myself here, but back in the day when there wasn't kind of digital software, you had to buy physical software. So we did diskette duplication and replicated those diskettes from kind of software companies millions of times over. We packaged them up and delivered them to the store. So we did that for a good 25 years. And then as the internet kind of exploded, and my father said, hey, listen, this thing called the internet, people aren't going to buy physical software anymore. They're going to download it. So he pivoted away from kind of duplicating software. And he says, hey, well, we're good at kind of retail fulfillment. Why don't we become a kind of full service fulfillment company? So we went from retail fulfillment and expanded into direct to consumer.
That's really, really cool. So that's kind of crazy because the industry you're in now didn't exist when your parents started, which is kind of crazy. So they had to full blown pivot into it. So obviously it's adjacent. You obviously spend time selling software. Maybe talk a bit about what's the biggest shift in kind of your mental models when it comes to software and digital outcomes versus fulfillment? What's the core value prop of fulfillment, and how is it fundamentally different from MarTech, for example?
It's a good question. I think with software, it's obviously infinitely scalable, and that's why SaaS is there's trillion-dollar companies out there selling software and digital media. So it's infinitely scalable, where fulfillment, obviously there are constraints, there's physical constraints. So you're selling physical goods and physical services. So that's been the real transition in terms of I get an infinite amount of stuff to sell. And now you have to be a lot more kind of thoughtful with kind of how you're servicing brands, the new brands you're selling to, and making sure that the right fit for the services that you provide, because there are constraints.
Very cool. From there, talk a bit about DCL's January 2026 expansion.
We're adding our 7th facility in the US. We're adding another facility in Southern California. So it'll be our 3rd facility in Southern California. And we actually purchased the building. So we own we're owned and operated facilities. We own the facilities, we own the land. And we've seen this kind of explosion over the last kind of, I'd say, decade in terms of just omni-channel fulfillment demand. So it went from retail to obviously D2C exploded during the pandemic. And our Southern California facility has seen that demand surge just because of more products coming in from the ports. It's a great kicking ass staging point for a lot of kind of retail and omni-channel fulfillment, both retail and direct to consumer. So we wanted to make sure we stayed ahead of our customers' growth and open a brand new facility. So we're actually opening that in June of this year. So super excited.
Very cool. So obviously our listener base is heavily just retailers that are trying to get an edge. What are some of the edges that you think people need to get in fulfillment? Like if I'm a D2C brand, what's the edge I can get over my competitors with partnering with a company like yours?
I think really with fulfillment companies, it comes down to like a true partnership. They obviously a lot, they see a lot in terms of the floor, what other brands are doing, kind of best practices, and also making sure that the fulfillment providers can kind of unlock different capabilities. Like examples of like their software should be dynamic enough to kind of help expand sales. I'll give you an example of something like virtual bundles. So marketing team wants to kind of test new products or bundles of products. And but there are constraints on the operations side. So we built software that you could do kind of virtual bundles and kit them on the line as opposed to kind of locking up your inventory by pre-kitting it, as an example. So there's different ways to kind of work with your kind of fulfillment provider to really unlock kind of either different sales channels or increase average order value by using different softwares or kind of in-house expertise.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
Very cool. Talk to me a bit about, you'd mentioned you guys are building some software for things like that. Is AI impacting your business at all, like either internally, operationally, or how you're interacting with your clients? If so, talk to us a bit about that.
For sure, AI is definitely impacting our business in a good way. It's driving efficiencies. One specific way is last year we launched kind of an AI powered carrier and parcel optimization engine, and what really that means is like taking all this kind of disparate data and allowing AI to make the decisions on behalf of ourselves and on behalf of our brands to kind of drive kind of costs down from a parcel standpoint and increase transit speed. So you think about kind of millions of data points. It's really hard to kind of process that on spreadsheets. It's really slow. And this is purpose built for kind of this generation of like AI powered thinking and in real time optimization. So that's something that we actually applied today. And it's been a huge success in a very short period of time.
Very cool. Now, getting into some of the e-com specific things. So we're chatting about this before, but McKinsey Company did a report. 95% of consumers say that they actually prefer free standard shipping over paid expedited. And more than 80% will still buy if there's 4 to 7 day delivery when it's free. When brands want kind of 2 day everywhere, how do you actually help them build infrastructure to be able to deliver on that? And what's kind of some of the maybe hidden cost to serve when it comes to being able to enable that?
I think that our customers could have both. A lot of brands could have both. They could have faster delivery, and that's cost effective. So I believe that they could have both. So working with brands up front is really understanding kind of their order profile, where their customer base is, and deciding how to place them in your network, whether it's 2 nodes that are bi-coastal or it's a single node in the middle of the country. It really depends. The beauty of it is that the carrier infrastructure or carriers have expanded tremendously over the last 15 years. So 15 years ago is like 3 main carriers, UPS, FedEx, and USPS, and now there's dozens of carriers that to choose from. So it's really kind of opened up the market for options and using technology to tap into those various carriers and kind of, again, like I said, bringing costs down and while increasing or maintaining kind of fast shipping.
Makes sense. I believe our team looked at one of your case studies. It talked about one of the brands that you guys support tripling their sales year over year. How have you guys kind of built infrastructure to be able to like support that so that quality doesn't instantly drop? Like, do you guys like kind of forecast who's going to grow or just have kind of latent demand? I'm curious how you guys handle things like that.
It's kind of both. I think it's like you have to proactively work with your customers and like understanding their forecasts, understanding where their business is going, what sales channels they're really like leaning into over the next 18 months. And then it's on us to kind of plan for that and making sure that we have the infrastructure, not only physical infrastructure, but we have the technology to kind of support kind of that growth. But at the same time, sometimes you can't predict demand. Like in some cases, customers explode, and you have to kind of be able to kind of scale quickly and pivot to those needs. So we've created a kind of a platform, if you will, both like a physical platform infrastructure to scale quickly based off just surges and spikes. And this is becoming more common, obviously, with the popularity of different sales channels, like a TikTok. Like sometimes, like things go viral, and you're obviously your volume increases 3x overnight opposed to average, and it was just totally kind of out of left field. So you have to be able to kind of adapt to your customers' kind of needs in different sales channels.
Makes a ton of sense. When you're doing your kind of planning with your customers this year, what were some of the biggest kind of themes that you saw across the customers that maybe you could pull as an insight when it comes to specifically retail businesses?
I think some themes that we saw, and this is kind of the tailwinds of kind of tariffs and things of that nature. And like, so we saw kind of inventory constraints. So we saw a lot of our customers kind of actually lead into kind of the hero SKUs. So maybe kind of tighten up their kind of SKU catalog or item catalog and focus on kind of like the fast moving SKUs or maybe the higher margin SKUs. So that's one thing that we saw. And that kind of translated into retail. The other thing that we saw is that retail actually this year or last year, 2025, was much later in the year, meaning POs were dropping far later than had previous in like previous 10 years. And I think that obviously retailers are holding back on POs. So you had to quickly adapt to say, okay, there's POs, massive POs dropping in the middle of peak, which we had never seen before. So we were kind of forecasting that, and we had to make sure we had to plan accordingly because it takes space, it takes manpower to do retail. So we had to kind of adjust quickly and make sure that we're kind of ahead of that. I think the same will be in 2026 is there's obviously a lot of kind of macroeconomics in play. Fuel costs are going up. The cost of goods is going up. So customers are thinking about their bottom line of saying, okay, do I tighten up my SKU count even more? Do I tighten up my sales channels? And are retailers going to buy later in the year? And how do I kind of plan inventory around that?
Makes a ton of sense. What kind of business scale? Is it revenue, number of SKUs? Does it start to make sense to actually take your fulfillment from in-house to a third party provider?
It's a great question. It really depends, and it's like I don't want to give you a non-answer. I think if in-house fulfillment becomes like a distraction, like again, I always think about brands like their core focus is building amazing products and selling those amazing products. And if warehousing and the management of kind of fulfillment becomes a distraction and it becomes just just overhead, it's a no-brainer for me in the sense of like you should outsource it. Like you should focus on what you're great at. On the fulfillment side, we focus on fulfillment. We don't get distracted by other things, and we say, okay, we want to be great at one thing, and this is what we're going to be great at.
Makes sense. Is there like a revenue scale that kind of starts to become more apparent in your experience? Or is it really like it could range anywhere
would
from a
say
million to like 20 or 50?
that's a good question. I would say anything past a million, like it's a no-brainer. Obviously, there's so many options out there now, and the hurdle to get into like work with a third party fulfillment provider is the bar is so much lower now in terms of just the barrier to entry. It's very turnkey. I think that it is important for brands sometimes to fulfill their own product because they're going to iterate quicker. Like they're going to understand why customers are returning the product, or they're going to say, okay, the design of this package is really hard to do. It's going to cost me a lot to actually fulfill it. Maybe writing a handwritten note on every package is not a scalable solution. It might look nice in marketing, but it's going to cost you a lot of money down the road. So those are the little things that I always think about is how nuanced is your fulfillment profile, but also it's important that they have hands-on initially to kind of learn. And then once they kind of outsource it, they can kind of help guide the 3PL and you can help scale your business quicker that way.
Makes sense. There's been a lot of headlines around returns being just like a macro problem, right? So maybe talk to me a bit about returns. How do you guys kind of help with that? That seems like honestly it's a sticky problem with some brands like having up to like 20% of their sales being returned back. So talk to me a bit about that.
As a consumer myself, it's like you just assume that the brand you could return the product and you could try it before you buy it type of thing. So we see that super common, and Obviously, big guys like Amazon have like just made the return process so easy. So that's kind of habituating the consumer's kind of mindset. I think on the brand side, it's really important that one, they have clear kind of return rules, what you can and can't return. Two is making sure that kind of the business rules with the fulfillment provider are very buttoned up in terms of what to do with inventory when it gets back. The sooner you like as of you disposition is a good product. Can I put it right back into kind of good stock and sell that product? The other thing is if it's disposition for kind of recycling, make sure those business rules are really clear. So in the same time, you want the platform and the information to provide back to kind of the brand in real time. So you could provide it to marketing, you could provide it to sales channels, the supply chain teams of why these products are being returned so they could iterate and learn faster.
Very, very cool. Makes a ton of sense. As we look to wrap up, Brian, is there anything else that you want our listeners who are mainly retailers to kind of think about?
I think we know in this world, this space, it's ever changing. So kind of having that kind of flexible mindset and adapting to the market, and your partners should act no differently. So whoever you partner with, like for example, a 3PL partner should have that same mindset, is that adaptability is going to help you scale your business. And you want to make sure when talking to 3PLs or any partner that they share that same mindset. So it's not just a vendor, it's really a partner mindset. And that's more so than ever before, just because of kind of what's going on in the world, how it's changing, I feel like every single day. And brands are just kind of adjusting on the fly, and partners need to do the same.
Very cool. Thanks, Brian. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Maybe LinkedIn? Is that a good channel for you?
LinkedIn. Please find me, Brian, too, on the LinkedIn, or find me on the website, dclcorp.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.